Hello, welcome along. Do join in the chat if you have any ideas on how to make this better. This is a new microphone and it has to go through Logic, so at the moment I'm hearing myself twice, which is a bit weird. The reason for doing this particular I'm going to take these headphones off because it's really distracting with that echo. I need to plug it into a mixer. The other day I was trying to show this in a mixing tutorial, but unfortunately you could hear my voice and all my thoughts, but the screen froze, which was particularly unhelpful. It wasn't this piece. This is one I did a couple of weeks ago. Sort of countdown-y. Hopefully you get the idea. Now, assuming this was a finished track and we're ready to send it off to library, first of all, you would just bounce the whole thing out. You put your cycle range on in Logic, you'd bounce out to a decent WAV and send it off to library. Then they turn around and say, okay, that's interesting. Now we want to sign it, but can you send us? And they will either say stems, alts, or both. What I need to do is work out what's the best way to illustrate that as how I would go about it. This is quite a good example because I've already color coded it with the different instrument groups. So I've got strings, brass, keys, synths, not keys, what are they? Then we've got percussion. Headphones are coming off. Whooshes, you might argue, are effects rather than percussion per se. So that would probably be better. What could we put them as? There you go. So there's a bunch of different groups here. So a stem is a stereo mix, but I don't think that's the easiest one to explain first. It's going to be alt mixes, because you got your full mix, job done. Common, well, the most common alt mix is a narrative, so you need to pick whatever's your melody and get rid of it. So I'm gonna have to put up with my echo. I would take those two out as a melody. I think I would put those back in. And that's literally all you do for an alt mix. You make it exactly the same length for most alt mixes. Take those off again. And I would bounce that out now, but give it a name in brackets of narrative. Okay, so that's a narrative, basically means your whole mix without your tune. Then you would have possibly a bed mix, in which case I would take out all the brass as well. I would leave in the synths. Yeah, so I would bounce that out as a bed. Go down one further and I would take out everything except the bass and the percussions. I would leave the effects in as well, and literally that is a D&B drum and bass mix ready to go. You might think of other combinations that would work because you might think, oh, actually the strings are particularly effective all the way through, along with the synths. So you would do a synth and string mix. And it's up to you. Normally you get guidelines on how many different versions are required, and sometimes they'll actually tell you exactly what those alt mixes need to be. Okay, so that's what an alt mix is. Now, the one that I more commonly get asked for is stems, and that is where you are grouping instruments into stereo mixes that can technically be layered on top of each other to create your final output. It doesn't quite work like that if you've got mastering on the output, because they will all have their own, as you export each one. Let's not mute myself. The way I would do that is in groups. So mute everything except the strings, and then bounce that as the name of your track, bracket strings. Then you would go down and you'd do brass. So you can see how this is different to an alt mix. An alt mix is you deciding what things are combined together. A stem is specifically different groups of instruments. So you'd have strings, brass. I would then do synth bass for those two, percussion, effects, and cymbals. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have 7 stems that I would give to the library. Now, in terms of explaining how you would do this, now, if your computer is quick enough, it is absolutely fine to do it from here. The problem you run into often is that if you've got mastering on and you're trying to export these things, and you know, you get overload problems and stuff, the ideal way to, the sensible way to do this is to actually create your finished mix as an audio file. When I say that, I mean okay, so we've composed this music. Great. What am I going to do with it? Well, the way you should So actually, let's try that. So this is countdown string. Okay, so that didn't work massively well because I've now managed to overload it. All good fun. Maybe try it with a less complicated track while I have so many things loaded. Something that's not too big. That's not too big. So I'm running into problems there because I've got OBS running at the same time. In fact, now that we've redone that, I'll put the audio capture on from the rubbish mic. That'll be interesting to hear the difference. Okay, this is not a great example. Straight off the bat, we got just call that percussion. That's an example of documentary stuff I'm going to do on Saturday. That is shake it. The brand new mic is in the way now. Get out of it. That's guitar. I suppose I was going to have to go through and do this anyway. There's piano. And synth. I don't think I've actually done anything with this yet. So nothing's mixed or anything. So this is actually probably a good example to go with. First thing to do is probably save it as an alternative before you mess anything up. So one way to do it would be to bounce each one. In fact, that's generally quite good advice, is to bounce your instrument tracks once you are done. So let's just bounce in place and give them capital letter names. And I'm going to delete the others as we go. Actually, this probably is a sensible way to show it. You can see me getting rid of tracks as I go. Goes to the guitar. Bear in mind, I do have, that's why we've done an alternative mix, alternative version, is because should I want to actually go back to the composing stage, I've got it ready to go. And again, depending on the speed of your computer, sort of depends whether you want to go down this route. If it's a small number of tracks and your computer copes fine, don't worry about it. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. Now I've completely forgotten what they were. Okay. Sort of shakery. That was sort of toms. That was guitar. That was bass. Piano. Okay, so this is a good way to actually get used to mixing your sounds. Do the composing first, bounce them down into audio files or export them if they're multiples, and get them into a session. So now actually I'm not even tempted to try and edit this. So this is where you go in. And mix the levels. If you wanted to add automation to it, that'd be the place to do it. So if you want the piano to come in subtly, not that subtle. Maybe we do the same with the pad over a longer period. Add any effects you wanted here. So compress that bass a bit. You would stereo it. You would solo it, obviously. Or you solo it to compress it, obviously, so you're not distracted. So now you've got an effect on the bass as well. Maybe you think, ooh. decided that was a bit harsh. There you go. So you get the idea. We're adding different effects, we're balancing it. You are basically creating the finished mix now for your tune. At that stage, you also want to make sure you've got room in terms of volume to be able to master it. So this isn't very loud at all. There's absolutely loads of room. Because what you would then want to do is do some sort of mastering. Let's see what Logic does. That's interesting. We go for a clean sound and reanalyze it. Okay, so it's dropping down those low mids and boosting some of the high notes. Wow. That really has pushed it up to -1 really quickly. But that's it really. I think that's probably the easiest way to explain splits and stems, because those are effectively now individual stems that I can export as well. Anyway, you can find out what happens in the next Monday episode, Music Monday. If you find this interesting, why would you not find this interesting? Do like and subscribe. I seem to be here most days at the moment, so always something new happening. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.